isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
For weeks, The View dismissed Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit as nothing more than a joke. They mocked it, laughed it off, and tried to ignore it. But now, the hosts are begging her to drop the case. How did things escalate so quickly? What happens next for ABC and the women of The View? At first, The View's reaction to Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit was one of dismissive arrogance. They laughed it off, mocked it, and treated it as just another conservative stunt for attention. Joy Behar, never one to shy away from expressing her opinion, rolled her eyes and scoffed, calling it a conservative playing the victim. Whoopi Goldberg, who has weathered more than her fair share of controversies, simply shrugged and said, "Please, we've dealt with worse. This will be forgotten in a week." As if to seal their confidence, Sunny Hostin, the show's legal expert, assured the viewers that the case was going nowhere and would be dismissed immediately. "This lawsuit has no legs to stand on," she claimed with absolute certainty.
For me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me, and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that, and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my way and found.
For a moment, it seemed like their dismissive attitude was working. Media outlets, including CNN and MSNBC, quickly followed suit, labeling the lawsuit as frivolous and baseless. Legal experts dismissed it as nothing more than an attempt to silence free speech, reinforcing the host's belief that this would be a fleeting issue.
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
However, behind the scenes, ABC's legal team wasn't so confident. They knew the stakes were higher than the hosts realized. They weren't laughing, and they had a far more serious understanding of what was at play. Something bigger was brewing, and the network was already preparing for what was about to unfold. While the hosts of The View continued to make light of the situation on air, ABC's legal team was scrambling behind the scenes. They understood that Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit wasn't just another baseless claim. It was a serious case with a solid foundation. ABC's legal team stated, "We take all legal matters with the utmost seriousness and are committed to addressing them in a thorough and professional manner." This wasn't a wild accusation. It was backed by documented evidence, witness testimonies, and a clear argument for defamation, workplace misconduct, and malicious intent. "This is not something we can just laugh off," one source inside ABC said. "There's real weight to this."
I have to stop you with the camera because I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. What was it?
Executives at ABC quickly went into full-blown crisis mode. Panic set in. If Leavitt's lawsuit made it to trial, it could open up a Pandora's box of internal emails, behind-the-scenes decisions, and private conversations, things they couldn't afford to see the light of day. The network's executives split into two factions. One group wanted to fight the lawsuit in court, believing they could win. But another, more cautious faction, was well aware of the risks and urged a quiet settlement. They understood the potential damage a trial could do. Meanwhile, The View's hosts remained blissfully unaware of the chaos brewing inside the network. "They still think it's a joke," one executive noted, "but we're already making moves behind their backs." The moment The View hosts found out that ABC was considering negotiating with Karoline Leavitt, they lost it. Whoopi Goldberg, who's been the face of the show for decades, was livid. She had been dismissing Karoline's lawsuit as a joke for weeks, but now, her own network was considering paying her off to make it go away. Whoopi couldn't believe it. In a closed-door meeting, she shouted, "Are you kidding me? We're actually taking her seriously now?" For Whoopi, this was more than just about the lawsuit. It was about feeling betrayed by the network. She had been untouchable for years, surviving scandal after scandal, controversy after controversy. And now, ABC was ready to fold. Joy Behar wasn't any calmer. She stormed into the dressing room, slamming her makeup case down in frustration. "We built this show. We made this network money," she fumed. "Now they're going to fold over some stupid lawsuit?" Joy wasn't having it. She wasn't backing down without a fight. Sunny Hostin, usually the composed one, was visibly shaken. As a former prosecutor, she knew better than anyone that this lawsuit wasn't something to be taken lightly. She had seen the court documents, seen the evidence Karoline was bringing forward, and worst of all, she knew that if this case went to trial, they could all be dragged into it. Everything they had said about Karoline, publicly and privately, could be used against them. Sunny was starting to realize that this was no longer just a legal battle. It was a reputation battle. And then came the moment that no one saw coming. The View, in full panic mode, tried to make a public plea for mercy. Instead of laughing off the lawsuit, Whoopi, Joy, and Sunny suddenly shifted their tone on air. Their once confident, dismissive attitudes were replaced with uneasy desperation. Whoopi opened up the segment by shaking her head and saying, "Look, I think we all just need to take a step back here. There's been a lot of unnecessary hostility, and frankly, this isn't good for anyone." She was trying to walk back her earlier comments, but it was too little, too late. Joy, who had mocked Karoline just weeks earlier, now said, "I don't know why this has to go so far. I mean, can't we just sit down like adults and talk this out?" It was a stark contrast to the Joy we saw a few weeks ago, mocking Karoline's lawsuit as nothing more than an attention grab. And then there was Sunny, the most desperate of them all. Leaning forward with a carefully chosen tone, she said, "Karoline, if you're watching, I think there's a way we can resolve this without dragging it through the courts. Maybe it's time we all come together and find some common ground." It was a stunning moment, one of the biggest public reversals in recent TV history. The same women who had laughed at Karoline and dismissed her as a troublemaker were now practically begging her to drop the lawsuit. But let's be real. This wasn't about finding common ground. This was about survival. Behind the scenes, ABC's legal team had made it clear that the stakes were high. If Karoline continued pushing forward with the lawsuit, everything, their internal communications, their decisions, their very image, could be exposed in court. The View was at risk of losing it all. This plea? It wasn't genuine. It was a desperate attempt to save their careers. As soon as ABC's public plea aired, social media erupted in response. Users quickly expressed their disbelief at the View's sudden shift in tone. For weeks, the hosts had mocked Karoline Leavitt and dismissed her $800 million lawsuit. Now, their plea for mercy was met with widespread skepticism. Audiences saw this as a transparent attempt to avoid the consequences of their earlier dismissals. Comments flooded the View's official social media platforms, with many accusing the hosts of guilt. One comment read, "If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging." The memes that followed were equally unforgiving. One showed a panicked image of Whoopi Goldberg, juxtaposed with a previous clip of her laughing off the lawsuit, while another highlighted Joy Behar awkwardly backpedaling from her earlier remarks. Conservative media outlets quickly seized on the moment, with Fox News dedicating segments to the host's public meltdown. The Daily Wire published pointed critiques, accusing the hosts of hypocrisy in their sudden plea for reconciliation. Independent creators on YouTube also weighed in, highlighting the hosts' attempt at damage control, noting that their newfound sympathy seemed less about genuine concern and more about saving face in the wake of growing backlash. By the time the public apology aired, it was too late. The View's desperation was evident to everyone. The backlash had already reached a boiling point, and now, with ratings plummeting and advertisers reconsidering their contracts, ABC was in full-blown crisis mode. Executives knew that the situation had spiraled out of control. If Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit went to trial, it wouldn't just bring bad press. It could expose the entire internal world of The View. And that was a disaster waiting to happen. But despite all the damage control, despite all the desperate pleas, the truth was clear. Karoline wasn't backing down. And the more The View begged, the weaker they looked. This isn't over. In fact, it's only just beginning. And as the media machine continues to turn, it's clear that The View might be facing its biggest scandal yet. So, what do you think? Will The View be able to save themselves, or is Karoline Leavitt about to take them down for good? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for all the latest gossip.